What's up everybody, and welcome to a slightly different look Football Boot Hour podcast this week. Regular viewers will notice that I am missing, in some kind of split screen, my co-host Andrew from the Lockhart Boot blog. So to have him here in spirit, I have brought my Derby County jersey along. But Andrew is currently away for the holidays, so I am essentially going to wing this one by myself. And to do that, I asked for your help on my Instagram page at BootWizard Boot Reviews to give me your questions. So we're going to essentially do a podcast style Q&A where I'm going to answer the questions that you put up, as well as reading out some of your requests for Christmas, your requests to Santa. What would you like? So let's get into the questions first, and then we'll move on to what you want from Santa. Yes, I am going to read this off my phone. It's podcast. It's freeform. I'm not going to be cutting this up into anything crazy. I'm also going to waffle a whole lot more than I normally do in my videos because it's a podcast. I can do what I want. Lost it already. So, we're going to start from the beginning. The first question that I got in here. So this is from Matt, from Matteo Hall, if you want to follow him on Instagram. What is the holy grail boot that you want but missed out on when they came out? And that's a really good question. So I haven't seen these questions until right now. So I'm literally, again, similar to what we do on the podcast, kind of do it on the fly. A holy grail boot but you want but missed out on when they came out. You see, because I don't buy an awful lot of the remakes, particularly the Predator remakes and things like that, I don't tend to miss out on a lot of stuff. I missed out on the CTR Nike remake when that first came out, but I got to try them since, and they were only okay. I missed out on the Beckham LZ remake. Now, these were both released in a period of time where I wasn't really making any videos or anything like that. Various reasons, it wasn't happening. And I missed out on that one as well, but I've not tried that one since because everybody who has it and who has had it has told me that they are shocking and awful. So I didn't even bother getting those, and they're still freely available. I don't think I have a grail boot that I missed out on in recent times. Like, you could go back and you could say like a pair of R9 Mercurials, those originals, the classic ones. But at that time I wasn't really collecting boots. So is that fair? Champagne Manias original. I always wanted a pair of Champagne Manias. And then actually just before, probably a year or so before I started doing the channel, maybe 2 years, if I think about it, I can't remember. I really wanted a pair of the Revenge Pack Manias, because they were synthetic rather than leather. And that is something, so everything I've listed so far, I haven't actually gone for, and I just, maybe I would have liked to try it. The Revenge Pack Mania I did try and get. So at the time I was coaching. Some of you may not know this, I am actually a UEFA B level qualified coach. And I was in a coaching meeting at the time that they dropped, and I actually skipped out of the meeting to try and grab the boots, but I still ended up missing out. Those disappeared. So that's probably one that I tried to get and missed out on, that I would have really liked to have picked up. Something I did recently get that I hadn't tried until recently. We're just going to do what I do in the podcast. I'm just going to get up and move. Where are they? Here we go. Now you can probably just hear me talking, but you can't see me. These. So this is the 0.1 version of the Beckham Precision remake, which had a non-leather upper. This had the synthetic leather upper that I really wanted to try. Again, wasn't doing anything for the channel at the time that these dropped. But I recently managed to get hold of a pair, so a huge shout out to Texas Cleat Collector for hooking me up with these. But this was something else, like another remake that I could have got hold of that I didn't get hold of. And now I have got hold of, and I actually really like these. I'm actually a very big fan of wearing these. Like, they're not incredible performance based, you know, with the fit and all this shape around the opening here, but I really enjoy them. So that's a very long answer to this question. You can see how you can see how this podcast is going to go, can't you? So thank you, Matt, for that. Next up, I have S. Sarling. Again, these are all from Instagram. S. Sarling. Which boot has the best lockdown? Skechers Razor or Sakito Skedetta? Let's do this again. I'm going to keep talking while I go and find boots at random. You can probably just see my ass in the screen now, which I'm sure is a lovely, lovely thing for you to be looking at. The question becomes, where are my Razor? The Razor are next to the camera. One Skechers Razor and Skedetta. Let's get my newer blackout ones out. There we go. Okay. See, I'm just going to trashing the organisation at the studio right now. So, what has the better lockdown? The Skechers Razor or the Sakito Skedetta? Now, if there's a random cut in the video and then it cuts back to me and I look like I've been crying, it's because I'm actually quite sick, quite ill, and I've either sneezed uncontrollably or coughed up a lung and decided to cut it out so you don't have to experience that. Anyway, Sakito Skedetta or Skechers Razor. The easy way without having to go and get boots would have been to say, for me, it's the Skedetta. Everything about it is essentially built in a way that just gives you more lockdown than the Razor does, and it is helped by things like adding the additional runner's loop up the top here, really pushing you back into that heel. But I think one of the most important things with this is that you get lockdown with comfort. So the lockdown is really, really excellent, but at the same time, it's got one of the most comfortable heels that I have come across. The Razor is still an excellent boot. It still gives you very good lockdown. I have absolutely no complaints about it. But even the adjustability from having the floating tongue system on the Razor, on the Skechers. Oh my word. On the Skedetta, just overall makes it, for me, the better choice of the two if lockdown is what you're looking for. Let's move on to the next question, because I butchered that one a bit, didn't I? Oh, here we go. So same individual, S. Sarling. I like the new Predator FT, but I'm not sure about its lockdown because of the laces position. Let's get the Predator FT. Where are you, Predator FT? Should be down here because I have had it recently. Predator FT. Okay, so here we have the Predator FT, and I do understand what you're saying about the laces position. Now, if you were to take, for example, the non-FT model, you just have the laces running down the center of the boot here, then you're going to have obviously more than sufficient lockdown there. However, if you start to, so for example, if you were to just pull the tongue over to there and get your strap under there, maybe pull it out, you're not doing too much damage to where you're kind of pulling the laces at that point. But the majority of people, myself included, are at least going to start pulling the tongue down to this point here. So your kind of minimum is going to be down here, about there, and then you are starting to obviously open up a very large hole at the top of the boot and just force those laces down a little bit. I can probably try and show you. Like, you force the laces down and you are definitely going to affect the lockdown that way. I would say it's not a major problem unless you start going for the full David Beckham. Again, shout out to Texas Cleat Collector and also to Trev Dunphy, who both really enjoy doing this, where they will take out the top lace hole of the boot there, so that you've got nothing holding the holding you back there, and then they would pull the tongue all the way down here. So they really go full David Beckham, pull that tongue all the way down. Once you do that, you're definitely affecting things like heel lockdown, but honestly, sometimes it's vibes and look good, feel good, play good, rather than worrying about lockdown. But if you're really worried about lockdown, just don't buy the FT model, buy the regular non-fold over tongue. But if you're going to be okay with just a regular amount of lockdown, then just wear your tongue a little bit higher and make sure that top lace hole stays in place. That would be my advice. There we go. Moving on to the next question. This is Sergio Reiko, regular contributor. Thank you very much. This is a great question. Besides sexism, how come there aren't more women-specific football boots? So, sexism, and the argument would be made by the companies that there isn't a demand. There clearly is a demand. I'm going to do a little Googling while we're on here. So, players. I'm literally Googling how many female football players there are in the UK. There are over 2.5 million registered players in England alone. So just in England, there are 2.5 registered players. That's not even including people who just play casually, don't play with anything that's a registered league or anything like that. So 2.5 million potential customers for a female football boot. Number of so there's probably some really great audio for you there as I go rah. To use that same logic for the US, I don't know if okay, so in the US, there are 1.7 million female registered with US soccer. So less registered with the official governing body, but I would probably say that due to the way that it works in the US, there is obviously considerably more than that. And again, to use that US soccer comparison, according to Wikipedia, there are 2.5 million male, 1.7 million female registered players with US soccer. So there is a huge market for women's specific boots, because I've just told you that there's 2.5 million in England and 1.7 million in the US. So you've got a couple of companies, and one company really, you've got Ida Sports, who are doing women's specific football boots. And obviously Nike gave it a whirl for 2 seconds with the Phantom Luna and then dropped it entirely. We had a women's specific F50 very briefly, no fanfare. It feels like a little bit of lip service from some of the big brands that aren't really continuing to push the women's specific boot. One of the only companies or big companies that's doing it regularly is Puma, who get any of their mainline boots in most colorways in a women's specific fit. So the reason as to why is partly down to money, new last, different last, releasing different types of boots. It's partly down to laziness. And like I say, people will claim that there's no market there, but there clearly is. It's very, very obvious. There is obviously the idea within brands as well that if they're already making money off somebody who's going to buy their product, why would they continue to then create another product to fulfill that market? So we have women's football players buying men's or unisex boots. So why would we then create another product for that market? They're already buying our products, which is an incredibly lazy way to think about it. And I think it's incredibly poor. And I think with everything that's going on with the growth of the women's game is stupid, if I'm being honest. But those can be, I think it's laziness on the part of the brands. It's cost cutting on the part of the brands. And I think it's something that has to be improved. And I encourage, obviously it's one thing for me to say, but I encourage female football players, female young athletes to stand up and speak about this. Female reviewers to get into the space, collectors to make themselves known and speak about this louder, because I can shout about it all I want, but I'm not a particularly reputable claim a reputable claimant when it comes to speaking about women's football boots, because I don't wear women's football boots, or at least not particularly regularly, although my Puma King Pros are women's fit. So I don't know if that answered the question or if I just went off on a tangent, but either way, that's the answer and I'm sticking to it. So next up, Chris Bottle. With the amount of leaks that happen to the big brands and the amount of leaks... Hold on. I believe Chris finished that in a DM. This is quality podcasting content as I scroll through Instagram to go back to Chris Bottle's page. Here we go. And here we go. Given the amount of leaks and the amount of drops, do you think big brands, or maybe all, should have a calendar at the turn of the year saying when drops will happen and if they're limited, super limited, or standard drop, not necessarily the colors or themes? I would love to see that. I just can't ever see that happening because, for example, I know on multiple occasions, for example, with Nike, where they've changed the release date at the last minute. And usually they'll deny this to the end of the earth. All big brands will. It's usually in response to something that, for example, Adidas have done. Say if Adidas have announced a boot that's coming in like a week and you're gonna be able to buy it, Nike will change your release date to drop a couple of days before that, so that they get the hype, maybe pick up some extra sales, maybe disrupt or interrupt that big Adidas drop. I've seen it happen. So I don't think they would ever stick to a rigid release schedule that they would put up. I do think it would be cool to see and a cool idea, and you might be able to get like a monthly overview, but I can't see brands ever doing it. To be honest, they're not going to give out any more information than they absolutely have to. For them, they're going to retain as much control as they can and just continue to take our money, basically. I think I've kind of said this before a little bit, that I don't feel like there's not a huge amount. In fact, there's no respect from brands for the consumer outside of what do we do to make the consumer spend more money. I don't think knowing the releases and if they were limited or not too far in advance would make us spend more money. There you go. That's an Andrew-esque anti-capitalist answer to bring up there. Hold on a second. I need to go back to the questions now. Chris, what have you done to me? What have you done to me, Chris? Making me go backwards and forwards. Here we go. But that's a great question. That's a really good question. Okay, this is Footloose Boots. Thoughts on special edition releases being only one size? So I'm assuming this is in relation to the Sakito Scudetta AFCON colorway, which was released only in William Troost Ekong's size, which is UK size 10, I believe. So you could only get it in his size. And I think this is the only time when it's acceptable. I think that if you're going to do a limited edition release, you have to cover the majority of sizes, your main sizes, even if there's a small quantity in each. For example, when Lotto did the Zero Gravity and a couple of others in remakes, let's go for another walk. Where is this one? Yes, lovely. So we have this Lotto here, and I'm not going to go digging to get my rose Lavelles out, but I will get these ones. So here are kind of the two ends of the spectrum as to what I find acceptable and not. Now, Lotto have clearly done this as a cost-saving measure with this particular limited edition. I think it was only available in 3-4 sizes. And this one, they didn't even make it in a size small enough for my foot. So I picked these up, but they don't fit me. Which I think is really disappointing and not a way to go about doing limited editions. However, this is an unreleased version of a Rose Lavelle New Balance Tequila. And these were only going to be released in her size, which I believe is a 5.5, US 5.5, I think. And the rose gold ones did release, again, only in that 5.5. So I think in that instance, with it being specifically related to her and her boot, I'm actually okay with it. But I think in this instance, it needed to be released in a bigger range of sizes and not just the 3 or 4 that it did get released in. With the Trust Ekong ones, I feel like it's a little bit middle ground. Like, no, they're probably like, he was the only person to wear them, I think. No, he wasn't. Was he? I don't remember. Let me know down in the comments. I think it's borderline acceptable. I'm unsure. Let me know what you think down in the comments about that one. I obviously didn't pick them up purely on the basis that I couldn't get them in my size. But I do think it makes things more special if they are very specific to the player. So for example, with the Scudetta, if they'd have done that boot in exactly his spec and things like this, then that would definitely, I think, be passable. But it's definitely been modified because that original boot that he was wearing at the AFCON is not the same as the boot that we can now go out and buy. There was modifications and changes made between the retail and the AFCON pair. So, yeah, I think that in that instance, it's a bit borderline, Okay, next up. This is Ollie Roach 55. If you could move any silo to another brand to improve it drastically, what would it be? So the easy answer is to move the Lotto, Maestro, or Solista really, to either Adidas, Nike, Puma, Skechers, anybody really, because then we'd get an update. They have been using the same boot for like 6 years with 0 updates outside of graphics. I'm just waiting for a new version. Now, I complain a lot that brands do too much all the time, make big radical changes for no purpose whatsoever other than, it's the time to do that. But 6 years is quite a long time, especially for the boot to essentially start getting left behind. When it first released, it was a competitor to, for example, the laceless version was a competitor to the Adidas 19 Plus, and there was argument to be made that it was better in a lot of ways. The upper was definitely more hydrophobic. There was definitely a kind of a grippier, tackier touch on the ball. The lockdown was definitely better. So there was a lot of positives, whereas now it's definitely fallen behind and needs a refresh, needs an update to justify the continued releasing of colours and charging of the 160, 170 euros that they are paying for it. Same applies to the Maestro. The difference with the Maestro is the Maestro was so close to being an unbelievable football boot, and they got like 2 things wrong. One was the sizing, one was the heel. And had they got either of those things correct, it would have been an amazing boot. They were doing things with that boot that Nike have only just started doing in the last couple of years. So I would have liked to have seen that move to another brand quite early to get an update, to get that kind of 0.5 update and really kind of push it over the edge. Other than that, I think, like, I wouldn't really move anything between the big brands. You could say the Future, because I don't like it, but I honestly should just put that in the bin at this point. No, I'm going to stick with the Lottos there. Like you could say something like, for example, an Adler, right? And you could move it to a big brand like Nike. But if you did that, the only thing that you would be allowed to change would be the marketing and the logo. Because if you take away any of the rest of what that boot is, it becomes pointless. Like, you can't take away the made in Japan. You can't take away all the different elements of what makes it its boot but it needs the bigger push, the more marketing, the more exposure. It needs players to be wearing it. So therefore, that's why it needs a Nike swoosh. But if you move it to Nike, you also you will inevitably strip it of all the things that make it premium, and in its own way, you'd also end up probably doubling the price. So while in marketing terms it's logical, it's not actually logical long term, I don't think. Anyway, moving on. This is Astute EF30. This is Dr. Astute, who is a member of the Boot Wizard channel. So if you do want to become a member, please hit the link down in the top pinned comment. You can help support the channel from as little as €2 a month. Costs you very little, makes a huge impact to me. And you can also join, that's for a subs bench position. You can also become a starting 11 member, which is only a small bit more expensive, and you get early access to basically all my videos by doing that, along with some exclusive content and some exclusive posts and stories and basic communication through the community tab. But the members are currently, I would wager, 4 weeks ahead of everybody else with Boot Wizard content. So if you want to get that content nice and early, do become a Boot Wizard member, check it out, and please do join. But back to Dr. Astute. Thoughts on how Diadora, Umbro, and Lotto achieve more relevance again? Funny, I just mentioned Lotto there. So Diadora, I think, can do a lot with what they've done recently by really pushing towards this sustainability focus. So they had that boot that dropped recently, which I've forgotten the name of. It was basically white, had green stitching that all looked kind of frayed, but it was a carbon neutral boot, and absolutely every part of it was made from recycled materials, leather scraps, various things like that. So I think Diadora definitely need to continue to pursue that and maybe make that an interesting angle for them. But I also think they need to modernize some of their boots. They seem to be hanging on to a lot of the older stuff. And trying to push that as like what they're doing, whereas I think a more modern take on something done well might be a difference. But I think if they keep moving towards sustainability, that's going to be something very relevant in the coming times. As for Umbro, I think they need a complete overhaul. I haven't got the new Alchemy in yet. I want to try it, but I don't know. I feel like they're not putting in the time, the effort, the resources in order to be able to be a major player. And it feels like they don't actually care to try and be a major player. They're happy just making the money that they make from selling boots at what seems to be quite a large markup and just ticking over like that. So they probably just need a bit more commitment to the cause. And as for Lotto, they need a new damn boot. They need to update the boots that they actually have because, like I say, they were on a bit of I think they were on a resurgence. They'd released a couple of boots that were being spoken about as viable and logical alternatives to big brand boots at a better price point. And now that price point difference has shrunk. It's not quite as large anymore. And they've been running with the same boots for 6 years. They've got to do something new. My light went off. Hold on, I'll be back. I'm back. And then, going back to the question, there's always two ways of looking at it. Do they need to take a big swing and do something really revolutionary to try and break the market, kind of disrupt things? Or in actual fact, do they just need to find what works in the market and do something really well and play it that little bit safer? Similar to what Lotto did with their knit boot option. Similar to what maybe Diadora are doing with their leather line. But Diadora stepped away from kangaroo leather. They don't have any K-leather mainline boots anymore. So that seemed to be foolish if they were going to focus on being that classic leather competitor to things like Nike. Because Nike have dropped it altogether. Puma have dropped it altogether. Adidas have moved to calf leather. So surely Diadora's time was then to stick with K-leather and really push forward with that and create a really high quality boot using a material that everybody looked for. But they stepped away from that too, which that's their decision. So they've all got different things that they need to do. The main thing they can do is have a lot more money to spend a lot more money on marketing and a lot more money on getting their boots on the feet of players. What can you do? Next question is Kaidoan97. Hi, James. Hope you'll get better soon. Thank you very much. My question is Golin a trusted retailer? I have purchased from Golin before, and I purchased a boot that I am going to review quite soon as I talk very slowly to try and remember where I put that particular boot, which for some reason I cannot see. But the short answer is that yes, Golin is a trusted retailer. I absolutely cannot see the pair of boots that I got from them, though. Sorry about that. Yeah, so you're just going to have to trust me that I did buy a pair of boots from them. And unless they're some kind of magical company that can steal in here in the dead of night and steal my boots back, I did buy from them. I bought a couple of things from them, actually. But yes, Golin is a trusted retailer. They're part of a company called Trade-In, and they sell all kinds of stuff. And I've had two experiences buying from them. One with something from their camping kind of camping arm, and one from the football, and both arrived, no problems at all. So yeah, you're fine. So Fish_enjoyer wants to know my favorite boots so far. Do you mean ever, or do you mean of this year? The obvious answer to this is the Adidas Nemesis. If you've watched the channel for a long time, I love the Nemesis 19.1. That is kind of my jam. And I just like to bring it up from time to time just to really hammer home the point of how much I like it. Because no one else wants to talk about it, because no one else really likes it apart from me. That's completely fine. So this. And as for my favourite boot so far of 2024, get subscribed to the channel. You'll have to wait. My lists for boot of the year, etc. are coming soon. We did also discuss this in our previous podcast for the Football Boot Hour Boot of the Year Awards. What do we got next? This is PJ Ramos 15. What would your perfect sock look like if you had to take one piece from different grip socks? This is very interesting. The reason this is interesting is because one of the videos that my members will be getting, I would anticipate early next week, or at least by late next week, is on these. So these are the optimized grip socks from the boot chamber. And the entire concept of this sock seems to be the neck from the WeFoot sock and the grips at least, but partly the base, but mainly the grips from the Adidas grip sock. And you get this kind of combo deal of one piece from one sock, one from another. And as far as if you don't want a super thin, super light compression grip sock, if you're just looking for like a regular thickness sock, a comfortable sock, there is basically nothing better than that WeFoot neck of the sock, in my opinion. I think it's absolutely fantastic. And for the boot chamber, the optimized grip socks, to use it here, I think is really, really top tier. So I think that is that's excellent, and probably my answer for what would make the best grip sock for most people is something like the WeFoot top. But then for the grips on the bottom, I'd like to see... So what I would actually like to see is I'd like to see the Technigrip grip socks, but with a bit more grip. So Technigrip use an invisible grip on their socks. And by that, I mean it is an invisible, or it's a yarn, it's a silicone yarn that is woven through the sock. Like, is it amusing that like I literally know where my socks are better than I know where my boots are? So Technigrip I'll show you right here. You can see it doesn't look like they have any grips, and it's because there's an invisible silicone yarn woven through the sock that provides the grip. However, it's one of the least effective grips in terms of actually providing pure grip and traction. But how comfortable that is, and there's just a trade-off that I'm more than willing to make. So I'd really love to have something like that, but slightly more effective. I also really like this style of grip. So for example, what's here on the apex. So this is what's traditionally would be known as a flocking style grip. But many companies have their own proprietary versions of this, True Socks being the obvious one. But I really like the way that Apex do it, and I also like their exo frame that they use to basically avoid the need for internal grips. But yeah, I think the WeFoot neck, for most people, I think for me, I would want the light guard neck, probably the light guard footbed as well. And the light guard grips are, yeah, but with a more effective Technigrip grip, and maybe some of the elements of the Apex as well. I got very deep into thought there. But yeah, light guard grip socks are some of my favourite. So for me personally, there you go. That's a good question. So this is from Neil, Neilio678. Worst pair of boots you've reviewed? Great question. It will be a takedown Adidas boot, potentially the takedown, third tier takedown, so it'd be the 0.3 at the time, Predator 19, something like that. Hold on, I will know what it is as soon as I see it. So I'm just going to go across into my YouTube studio here, and I'm pretty sure it's a takedown Predator, and I just hated it. So recently it's the takedown, the League FT from the previous generation Predator. That was bad, really bad. And then I also reviewed, this is going back a long time now, I reviewed the Freak 0.3. So not quite as far back as I thought. The Predator Freak 0.3 was freaking awful. Absolutely shocking. So that might be the worst boot that I've ever reviewed. I haven't reviewed the previous generation Puma Future, so I can't put that in there. But that was pretty shocking too. I'll probably put that up at some point. And finally, Slipstream 151, SG boots recommendation under £100. So this is kind of an annoying thing to do, and I'm sorry, but I'm going to do it. If you have £100, go and find either something on sale or something that is lightly used once or twice from a place like Vinted or eBay or something like that. Obviously, make sure you're getting something legitimate, but check those places for boots that are from last generation, 2 generations ago, 3 generations ago, 4 generations ago. Go and check those, and or at least check for things that are on sale. Right now, you can, or you could at least quite recently, you could get the Puma Ultras, the Ultra, like the normal Ultra in SG, you could get for around £100, probably less than £100. Actually, so that's probably like a good way to go. There's the current Puma Kings, you could get them for less than £100. Look for what you can get on sale, and look outside Nike and Adidas at least, because you're going to get the biggest discounts that you can find. That is all the questions that came in, but I did promise you that I would also read out your Christmas football wishes, and we got a lot of these, so many of these. So I'm just going to go through them, and I'll react to ones that I think are funny. So this is Catagan7. Gunmetal Manias, we've waited too long. It's true. We have waited way too long to get the Gunmetal Mania, and it is time. Let's have it, please. This is Matt as well, Matteo Hall. So these were your Christmas wishes. You could wish for anything at all. Didn't matter how ridiculous. A Beckham Pred Silver Dragon colorway on the new model, and Arsenal winning the Premier League, or Champions League. A Beckham Pred Silver Dragon colorway on the current model would be incredible. That's a great shout. Rubenma_9, I want the Lamine Yamal cleats. Class, and there was only 304 pairs of those, was there? Sheesh. Crazy. This is an interesting one. We will react to this. Ross_Golby, 1998. Brands to start acknowledging people with wide feet. Sick to being limited to about 3 or 4 boot choices. Now, this is interesting because I think that brands are starting to make massive roads into creating boots that are very generically shaped towards an awful lot of foot shapes. All you have to do right now is look at the Nike Mercurial and the Nike Phantom GX. These are both great options for people with wide feet, and the Mercurial, the Vapor particularly, would never have been a wide-footed option before. I think that the New Balance Tequila is another great option, and of course anything from New Balance you can get in a wide fit boot. What have Adidas got going on at the moment? The Messi F50, that's probably quite a good one because of the adjustability, and I think the general move towards these U-throat tongues, these U-throat systems, is actually helping wide-footed people out a lot. And I actually think that brands are starting to forego the identity and performance of a boot in order to try and accommodate more people, and are leaning towards the wide-footed player because a lot of people, I'm not saying this person in particularly, but a lot of people seem to think they have wide feet when they actually don't. So in this instance, we could say that, we could be talking about 2E wide feet. And then, you've only got a couple of options because there's a lot of brands that most brands are not making a wide-footed boot. But I think there is a lot more options now for your averagely wide foot person than there would have been even a couple of years ago. So that's my take on that. S. Sarling, again, the Scudetta, would like a Scudetta. Alex Vander, which is Alex Martinez, another member. On my knees begging for some Mizuno Wave Ignitus. I'm not actually Santa, despite the beard, so please don't get your hopes up. The Boot Predator would like Beckham match-worn Manias, please, Santa. Perfectly legitimate request. I'll have a word with the big guy. McSherry Liam for a modular football boot to see the light of day. I would love to see a modular boot come back. I really would. Sergio Reiko, any made in Japan leather Mizuno FG or TF. That's what he'd like in his stocking. Gotta shoot big. Chris Bottle would love to work on an actual drop again, no matter how limited, with any brand. Chris, we would love to see you work on another drop. If you don't follow Chris on Instagram, chris.pottle, go and check out his work. It's absolutely incredible. And Chris would also like to have a serious chat with Adidas about the glitch and then head up its return. So the glitch, another modular football boot, something else that we would really like to see come back. And Chris is being greedy because he also wants a pair of F50 Lamine Yamals. So you know what? Fair enough. Footloose Boots would like more leather Preds. Footloose Boots, get out. GSF 723 would like more silver and less gold boots and more leather. Yes, Adidas, I mean you. I do, you know what? I like gold boots more than silver boots, but I do agree. I think silver boots are underserved. So I get behind that. Ollie Roach 55. Mizuno releasing a colorway that isn't white. I want some made in Japan's. I deserve it, I think. Mizuno do white a lot. Dr. Astute again, new Mizuno Morelia DNA release, and a pair for myself, naturally. So the Morelia DNA, go and check out Lockhart Boot Blog and Noah Kavanagh. They're both huge fans of the Morelia DNA and pretty much laud it as one of the best boots that's ever made. So another pair of Nike Tiempo Sergio Ramos after the one of the rear studs cracked in 2 weeks. No! What an absolute disaster. And that is a gorgeous boot. That was the Tiempo Legend 8, was it not? No, the 7. That was the 7 with the Ramos design on it. It was lovely. Fish_enjoyer. All I want for Christmas is Rodri to be back, and the rest of the footballing world does not. That man can sit out the rest of the season as far as we're concerned. This is Billy, PDL 24 DCP. Wave cups for everyone, and cheaper and easier to get AG plates for sure. Especially in the US, there seems to be a lot of problems getting AG plates. So I wish for that for all of you too. Three Traveling Bears would like Nike remakes of the Vapor 2 Gold with a 1-to-1 upper, and Vapor 3 White Gold Black with a 1-to-1 upper with updated tooling. Don't mess with it as much as they did with the new releases, basically seems to be the message there. And Monta 1111 would like a gold Adler for January. With that in mind, you should definitely go and check out Substance Football's most recent video where he has a pro custom pair of Adlers that have been made specifically for him, and he did have the opportunity to pick colorways. He did not pick gold, but I do believe gold was an option, so I'm going to have a chat with him about his decision making. That's all the questions and comments that I've got. So that will be this week's Football Boot Hour. I won't say we will be back as normal next week because at this point I do not know. But keep tuned in, and as always, more content from me here on Boot Wizard. There'll be more stuff from me and Andrew on the Football Boot Hour, and head over to the Lockhart Boot blog to check out what he is doing with his blog. He's currently testing out the brand new Asics DS Lite X Fly Pro.